Hello, everyone. A nightmare unexpectedly materialized in the city of Los Angeles, which is known as the city that never stops shining. With the sound of sirens wailing ceaselessly interspersed with desperate cries, the blue skies that were normally bathed in the sparkling California sun were now enveloped in thick smoke that became blood crimson. Cries from inhabitants who are attempting to flee one of the greatest wildfires in the history of the city, while the surroundings are in complete pandemonium. As Aiden, a firefighter with 15 years of experience, stood there staring at the towering wall of flames in front of him, the hot Santa Ana winds blasted ferociously, as if they were breathing life into the raging fire within minutes. "It was impossible for us to control this," cried Aiden's colleague, whose face was saturated in perspiration and dust. However, it was not just the fire that left Aiden in wonder. In the distance, he saw a magnificent white skyscraper. The buildings that surrounded him had collapsed into ashes. In the midst of a sea of fire, the neural network stands tall and proud. The Mosque of Iman, the edifice seemed to glow amidst the dark, smoke-covered sky, untouched by even a lick of flame. "Look at that," Aiden cried, his voice quivering as he pointed to the mosque. His colleagues froze for a while. What they saw defied logic. Every building around the mosque had been reduced to. The mosque stayed solid, as if it were protected by an unseen force within the mosque, despite the fact that it was surrounded by rubble, including the community center, which was only a few meters away. The imam, Sheikh Ahmad, along with a few other members of the congregation, were completely absorbed in prayer. Since the morning, thick smoke had begun to cover the region around the mosque, and they were aware of the danger. At any moment, fire may consume their sanctuary. Nevertheless, rather than panicking, they chose to bow down before Allah in order to seek His protection. Allah is the ultimate protector. In a calm and collected manner, Sheikh Ahmad addressed the frightened congregation, saying, "If we put our trust in Him, nothing can harm us without His permission." The fire crept through the air. The fire was getting closer, consuming everything in its path, and some congregants who were unable to evacuate in time could only surrender to fate. However, from the windows of the mosque, they witnessed something extraordinary. When the fire reached the grounds of the mosque, the winds suddenly swirled in an unusual way, forming an invisible barrier around the mosque. Maria, a local journalist, received strange rumors of a mosque that had survived in the midst of the inferno. The flames never touched the walls of the mosque, which was located elsewhere in the city. Although Maria was not the type of person to believe in mystical occurrences, her curiosity compelled her to investigate. "I need to see it for myself," she said. She muttered as she moved toward the area, adjusting her camera. When Maria arrived, she was shocked to see that the mosque had been entirely preserved. Even the white paint on its walls had stayed pristine. This was a striking contrast to the charcoal ashes that covered the ground around the mosque. She approached one of the mosque's walls. She asked the firefighters, "What happened here?" The firefighter shook his head and stared at the mosque. "Since I've been working in this field for years, I've never witnessed anything quite like this. I don't know what happened, but we saw the flames stop as if it were being blocked by something." Immediately after turning on her camera, Maria began to record the miraculous event. It was through her perspective that she came to the realization that the narrative of this white mosque was not only about a fire, rather, it was about something much more significant having to do with faith, prayer, and an invisible power that defied logic. When Maria was sitting in her car that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the extraordinary sight that she had just seen on that particular occasion. Replaying the video of the white mosque that was still standing in the midst of the destruction, the mosque appeared to glow in the footage, which was in sharp contrast to the ruined environment and the rubble that surrounded it. "Is this just a coincidence?" she whispered, attempting to search for a rational explanation in her capacity as a journalist, who placed value on the facts. Although Maria was accustomed to discovering the truth, the events that she had experienced this time felt different. She was so determined to learn more that she made the decision to go back to the mosque the following morning in order to collect first-hand stories from the witnesses. She was beyond human comprehension. It was the following morning when Maria showed up at the mosque, which was now the focus of attention from local residents, firefighters, and journalists from a variety of outlets, had assembled in its courtyard in front of the throng when the incident occurred. Imam Sheikh Ahmad stood placidly and recounted the events that transpired when the fire broke out. All we could do was surrender to Allah because we did not have any fire extinguishers or assistance. All we could do was pray. Continued reciting lines from the Quran in an effort to receive protection from the Supreme Sheikh. The tone of Ahmad's speech was gentle, but it was replete with conviction. Maria went over to one of the worshippers who appeared to be still in a state of confusion. His name was Kareem, and he was a volunteer who frequently aided with activities at the mosque. We believed that this was the end of the story. The smoke was so heavy and the fire was so close, yet for some reason, it stopped at the courtyard of the mosque. It was as if there was an invisible wall shielding us. Kareem elaborated on. Maria took detailed notes on each and every piece of information, but her mind was racing with questions. What's the reason for this? In the meantime, what genuinely took place here? To assist after his shift, the firefighter who had been the first to witness the miraculous survival of the mosque couldn't shake the memory either. He went to the mosque in the hopes of speaking directly with those who had been there. This is the first time I've ever felt like a small person. Aiden admitted to Shamad that when they met inside the mosque, I've never felt like such a small person. Shamad smiled gently and said, "Sometimes Allah's power transcends human logic. Perhaps this is his way of reminding us that there is something greater than ourselves." Shamad had always felt that science and logical explanations were the means to explain things, but this was something that could not be explained. Aiden nodded, still unable to make sense of what the Imam had said, and he looked around, the mosque studying its particulars in detail. Despite the raging inferno that had devoured the region, everything appeared to be in beautiful condition, including the white dome that towered above the spotless walls that were free of any stains and the neatly placed crayons on the shelf. However, people who were affected by the blaze were not limited to those who were physically present at the mosque. This event's news of the White Mosque surviving the flames spread rapidly, even reaching viewers on a global scale. Major media outlets began covering the miracle, referring to it as a light in the darkness on various social media platforms. Many people praised the occurrence as a demonstration of God's power after images and videos of the mosque caused them to go viral. During the evening, Maria sat in the courtyard of the mosque with a few congregants who remained awake and shared stories of what they had experienced during the fire that she sensed. While others questioned how such a phenomenon could occur, discussions about the White Mosque grew, drawing attention from believers as well as skeptics. I felt as though something was changing within her, as if the marvel of the mosque had opened a door to a world that she had never understood before. This mosque serves as a reminder to me that there is something that is larger than what we can see or touch. A senior member of the congregation remarked in a nasally tone. After a moment, Maria took another look at the dome of the White Mosque, mirrored the moonlight, emanating a sense of tranquility that was difficult to define. For the first time in her life, Maria had the realization that perhaps there were certain things that could never be adequately described by logic alone. As Maria started her day, she was filled with a renewed sense of purpose because of the miracle that she had observed at the Nur al-Lan Mosque, shifted her viewpoint on a variety of issues, and as a result, she felt obliged to look for more profound answers. That morning, the mosque was once again full with people from all walks of life, some of whom came to worship. The camera and notebook that she was holding were no longer merely tools for employment. Rather, they were weapons in her pursuit for the truth. Maria noticed that the congregants and Shamod greeted everyone with loving smiles and that everyone is welcome here despite of their religion or beliefs. While others came here out of curiosity, Maria observed how everyone was received. Shamad responded to Maria's inquiry concerning the large number of non-Muslim guests by stating that this mosque is a place of refuge for everyone who is looking for peace. I noticed an elderly woman sitting in the corner of the mosque's courtyard, gazing at the building with a profound sense of emotion. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Carter, a retired educator who had lived in close proximity to the mosque for many years. "I'm not Muslim," Mrs. Carter said with a trembling voice. "But I know one thing. This mosque is not just a place of worship. A regular structure, I had the impression that there was something protecting all of us, not just those who were inside the mosque, while the fire was getting close. This miracle was not simply about the mosque surviving the fire. Rather, it was about how the mosque conveyed a sense of safety and tranquility to everyone surrounding it." Maria took careful notes on those words, without regard to the differences between them. While everything was going on, Aiden went back to the mosque with a small group of other firefighters. These were the same comrades who had witnessed the miracle that night. One of them, a young man called Ryan, appeared to be profoundly impacted by the event. Since that night, I have the feeling that something is missing. During the course of my life, Ryan said, "Shamad, I don't know what it is, but I want to learn more about it." With a friendly grin, Shamad greeted them and explained that the mosque was not just a place of worship, but also a place where people could exchange their knowledge and wisdom with one another. Although the fire may have been a test, it is also a lesson for each and every one of us, according to Shamad. On average, Aiden, skeptical of topics pertaining to the spiritual, had been experiencing a distinct change for a few years. On that night, I came to the realization that there is a power that is significantly more powerful than us somewhere. I had been putting out fires, assuming that we could control everything. Maria made the decision to consult with a wildfire specialist, Dr. Nathan Harris, in order to obtain a scientific explanation. For years, a researcher at the University of California has been studying wildfire patterns in Los Angeles. In theory, there is no scientific explanation for why the mosque was able to remain intact. During the course of his examination of Maria's photographs, Dr. Harris stated that the Santa Ana winds ought to have propelled the fire in a direct direction toward the mosque. The buildings that were located surrounding it were destroyed by fire, but the mosque appeared to be protected by a barrier. Despite the fact that Maria agreed, she was aware that this narrative could not be justified merely from a scientific point of view because there was something more significant than just facts and data presented. After a few days had passed, Maria's attention was once again drawn to a minor occurrence. Alex, a man who was once known for his unwavering skepticism of religion, went to the mosque in order to have a conversation with Shamad. Alex was an architect who had been involved in the remodeling of the mosque a few years earlier. Alex stated that he does not believe in miracles, but I am aware that the materials used in the construction of this building are not extraordinary. It is nothing unique. If the other buildings in this area could have been demolished, then this mosque ought to have been destroyed as well. But on closer inspection, there is not even a scratch on it. Shamad grinned and continued. Sometimes Allah shows his signs through things that cannot be explained. This is not to demonstrate his power. Rather, it is to remind us to return to him. The day that Maria came to this realization was the day that she recognized the miracle of Nuran Mosque was not just about the walls surviving the flames. The miracle was how this mosque motivated those around it, both believers and skeptics, to ponder on life, the power of prayer, and the magnificence of the Creator. Maria glanced at the light-emitting dome of the mosque. The sun was shining in the afternoon, and she was aware that her search was not yet complete. However, one thing was crystal obvious to her. This mosque was a sign not only for Muslims, but for all of humanity. A sign that indicates that togetherness, optimism, and faith could succeed even under the most catastrophic of circumstances. The place where the flames of destruction are burning, there Allah has the ability to stoke the flames of hope